Hello friends! Today we are gonna design a real estate web application using React. This is the home page. We can choose the type, location, and price, and search for the related items. Here is the list page. We can see the search result. We can change the filter options and search again. And here we have a map that we can see the locations. I can check the entire map. I can zoom in or out, and when I click on a marker, it shows the information of that place. So users can choose a place using the map or this list. Let's open up the single page. We have all the information here. Again, the location of the place, all the features, and the description. And here we have a slider. We'll create this slider without using any third-party library. We can save the place, send a message to the owner. Of course, to do that, we should be logged in first. After the login process, we will see the profile link. On this page, we can change the user information. We can see our posts and the saved posts. And on the right side, we have the latest messages. When I click on any message here, the chat component shows up and we can see the conversation and send a new message. It's a great tutorial to understand the React basics and to improve your design skills. And this design will be responsive. So you will learn how easy to change styles depending on different screen sizes. And in the next tutorial, we will create our backend server and fetch all this data from a database. So let me know in the comments which technologies you want to see in the next video. I'll read them and start creating the tutorial. If you wanna see more projects like this one, please like the video. If you are ready, let's get started. Okay. I'll create a new folder on my desktop, let's say Estate UI. I'm gonna open up my VSCode and move this folder here. Right now we are ready to create our React app. To do that, we will be using my GitHub repository. The link will be in the description below, and when you open it, you will see this page. And here we have the starter branch. It's an empty project. So we are going to create everything from scratch. And inside public folder, we have all the images we are going to be using during this tutorial. So it's a great way to start our project. So let's come back. By the way, at the end of the video, I'm going to create here one more branch, and it's going to be the completed version of the application. So it will be an open source project. If you want to, you can give it a star. And if you have any problem, you can check the code here. Okay, let's import this project to our VS Code. I'm gonna come here, copy this URL. I'm gonna open up my terminal and I will say git clone. We are gonna be using the starter branch, so I will say single branch and the branch name. I will paste my URL. We are gonna download everything in this folder. So I will say dot, and that's all. But this tutorial will be really long and you'll not finish the project today probably. So it's better to use the fork option and it will create your own repository and it will be much easier to keep track of your progress. If you choose this option, as you can see, it's going to create your own repository. This is my test account. And right now you can use your own URL here. In this case, you don't have to write single branch. You can directly say git clone your URL and dot. So I'm gonna enter. And they are here. As you can see, we don't have our libraries. Let's install and start our application. To do that, I will say npm install. As you can see, all the dependencies are here, so we are ready to start. I will say npm run dev. And this is the local server that we are running our application. Let's open up. Okay, so right now we can create our website. This is our example, but before I want to give some style. As you can see, there is a space here and we don't have any font family. So let's give this style using CSS, but to do that we are going to be using Sass. We are using that because it makes writing CSS much easier. We can use nested items, so we don't have to give class name for every single item. When we start, you are going to understand better. By the way, I know some of you will say why you are not using Tailwind. I just try to use different technologies as much as possible. We created projects with Tailwind, we created projects with styled components, Material UI, and I try to encourage you not to stuck on a single technology, because when you get a job, you'll be asked for different technologies. If you want to be a front-end developer or a full-stack developer, you have to know CSS, you have to know Tailwind, vanilla JavaScript, TypeScript, or whatever it might be. So try to create different projects with different solutions. This is how you can keep yourself up to date. Okay, let's install our library, npm install and sass. Okay, let's create here our main CSS file. I'll say index.scss. And I'm going to import this file inside my main.jsx file. I'll say import index.scss. Okay. So let's get rid of this empty space. I'm going to use the selector and here padding 0, margin 0, and the box sizing will be border box. And if we add a link in our app, as you can see, there's a default style here. I don't want to see this color or this underline. So I'm going to choose all the links in our application and I will say text decoration will be none. So it's going to remove the underline and the color will be the parent's color. So I will say inherit. Okay, awesome. So let's change our font family. I'm going to choose the body and I'm going to change the family. And finally, I will say overflow hidden. If you don't know why we are using body for the font family or this overflow, or if you don't know this selector, I recommend you watch my CSS video. I explained everything you need to know. Right now we can create our layout. Let's check our app. As you can see, there's a space here. It's not full screen. And if I open up my console and if I shrink the page, as you can see, its size is changing. Let's do that. I'm going to close here and here. For my application, I'm going to give here a class name. And let's say layout. We are going to change here when we build our page router, but for now it can stay like that. I will just say hello again. And for now, I'm going to create here a new CSS file. And let's say layout. I'm going to write my class name here. And let's call this file here. Let's see. Okay, it works. Let's give a full height so we can see better. Okay, basically we are going to have 3 different breakpoints. Small screens, medium screens, and large screens. And for each screen size, we are going to change the width of this layout. And the maximum size of this width will be this size. As you can see, its size is not 100%. We are going to give a limit. Let's do that. I will say maximum width and it's gonna be 1366 pixels. Like that. Let's center our layout. I will say margin left and right. And it's gonna center my item. And also I can give a space here. So I will say padding left 20 and right will be 20. So in any case, we are gonna have here a space. It will be really useful for the mobile screens. You are gonna understand better right now. Let's create our breakpoints. Again, new file, and I will say responsive.css. And I'm gonna create here a sass function using mixin, and the first function will be small. And inside I will create a media query, and I'm gonna write here my condition, and it's gonna be maximum width 738 pixels. And inside we are gonna write our style depending on the class name. So for each class name it can be different styles. So I will write here content, and using this function I can say for small screens make the background red, for example. In this case our content will be background color red. Let's try. I'm gonna save here, and I have to import this file here. Import responsive.scss. Let's use our function here. To do that we are gonna be using include, and the function name small, and background color will be red. Let's open up our console and shrink our page. You can see the number here. When it comes to small screen, as you can see, it's red. This is how it works. So let's create other screens. By the way, you don't have to write small, medium, or large. If you want to, you can write phone, desktop, large screen, whatever you want. But I will say MD and large. And this breakpoint will be 1024 and the biggest screen. Let's try again. Medium and large. Let's say this color and this color. As you can see at the beginning, it's purple because in our condition the maximum width is this width, but our screen is much bigger than that. So in this case it's gonna take this background color. But if the screen is maximum LG, it's gonna show curl. After that, this blue color and this red color. Let's see. Remember, this is our width. At this point, orange. This point, oops, didn't work. Because we are not using mobile first. In this case, we should write them in order. For the biggest screen, it's gonna be this. Smaller, smaller, and the smallest. Let's see again. Purple, orange, blue, and red. If you want to, you can use mobile first approach. It depends on you, but it can stay like that. So what I'm gonna do here, let's make them a little bit lighter. I'm not gonna delete them. We can see which screen size we are using. So for the large screen, the maximum width will be 1280 pixels. So we are gonna keep seeing our white space. What I mean by that. When I shrink, as you can see, there is no space here. To prevent this, I'm going to give here maximum width. In this case, we are going to have a space. And in this point, again, I'm going to give a space. And it's going to be 768 pixels. And for the small screen, maximum width will be 640. And perfect. This is our responsive layout. So I can delete this background color. Others can stay. And let's take care of our navbar. I'm gonna close here. And let's see what we have. As you can see, we have two sections, those links, logo and links, and some other links here. But as you can see, they are separated and the background color is different. So let's create our first component and create two different divs. Inside source folder, I will say components, and inside navbar.jsx. Let's create our function navbar, and I'm gonna export my component, export default navbar. And we are gonna return a navbar, and inside we are gonna have two items, the left side and the right side. Let's use this component here. I'll say navbar, and let's see. Okay, our items are here. So how I'm gonna separate them? Firstly, they are gonna be horizontal, so we can use display flags. Let's do that. I'm gonna create a file, navbar.scss. Actually, I can create here a folder. It can be easier to see because we are going to create different components. In this case, make sure that it's updated. And let's import our CSS. Navbar.scss. So I'm going to come here and choose my navbar, and I will say display flags, justify content space between. Just like that. I can give here a height. Let's say 100 pixels. And in this case, I have to center my items vertically. To do that, we are going to be using align item center. Let's move this here. Okay, awesome. So let's create our logo. As you can see, there is an icon here and this text. Inside left div, I will say a link, and inside this link we are going to have an image, and the image will be logo.png. After that, a span, and you can write here your brand. And after that, by the way, let's give here href and another anchor tag. Let's say home, about, and the others. Okay. For the right side, again, two links. Let's remove this right. Just like that. And I will say sign in and sign up. Okay, let's check our example. As you can see, the left side is much bigger than the right side. It's like 60% and 40%. If you want to, you can give your size like that. I'll say left and right. As you can see, we can use our items inside the parent. This is why we are using SCSS. It's much easier right now. And You can say width 60% and 40%, but since we are using display flags, I can say flags 3 and 2. So it's going to be 3 units, it's going to be 2 units. Okay, if I give background, you can see better. Just like that. Right now, let's take care of this logo. I'm gonna remove those background colors, and inside left, I will say logo. Firstly, font weight will be bold. I'm gonna increase the font size. Again, I will say display flags. Remember, this is our logo, this icon and this text. So they are gonna be horizontal, and I'm gonna give a space between them. So I will say gap 10 pixels. Let's check our example. Okay, I didn't give class name here. Let's say logo. Actually, I can close my sidebar and move this navbar here. Okay, right now it's much better. Let's see. Okay, there's a space between them, but they are not vertically centered. So I will say align item center. Let's decrease the size of this image. I will directly choose image inside the logo, and I will say 28 pixels. Okay, as you can see, those items are not horizontal. It's really easy to handle. You already know how to do that. Align item center, and gap between each item will be 50 pixels, just like that. So let's move those items at the end of the right div. Again, I will say display flags, align item center, and the justified content will be flags end. So it's gonna move the items to the end of the div, just like that. And I'm gonna change the background color of this right side. As you can see, it's gonna be this color. So let's say this color. But its height is not 100%. Let's fix this. Okay, and what about our items? As you can see, the last item has its background color. Let's give a class name for that. I will say register, and I'm gonna use it in my right div. I will give background color. It's gonna be this yellow color. Okay, by the way, there is a typo here. And I'm gonna give some margin and padding. I can do the same thing for this item also, so I'm gonna choose the A tag inside my right div, and I will say padding 12 on the top and bottom, and 24 on the left and right. And I'm gonna give margin, and perfect. What about hover effect? If I hover over my links, as you can see, they are changing their sizes. So I'm gonna choose all the anchor tags inside my navbar. I'm gonna give a transition effect, and it's gonna take 0.4 seconds, and the timing function will be ease. And when I hover over them, I'm gonna increase the scale. It's gonna be 1.05. That means 105% bigger. Let's see. And awesome. Let's open up our console. And when I shrink, as you can see, we don't have this logo text anymore. And if I shrink more, and right now we have a menu. When I click, we are gonna see our menu. Click back. By the way, there is a problem here. We cannot see the border. We are gonna fix this. But before, let's take care of the responsive design. For the all links, I will say include small screen and display will be none. Of course, if you are using this function, you need to import your file. I will say import responsive as CSS. Let's open up our console. As you can see, they are gone. And for the medium screen, I'm gonna delete this text. Let's copy this, find our logo. If you remember, we have a span here. I will say span. For MD screen, again, it's gonna be display none. But for the small screen, we are gonna see it again, so I will say initial. Let's see it. Large, medium, it's gone. Small, it's back. It's that easy, guys. So what about the responsive menu? Firstly, I'm gonna create here an icon. So inside the right div, I will say menu icon, and let's create here an image, and it's gonna be, let's see what was the name, menu.png. And right now at the beginning, it's gonna be display none. So I'm gonna come here and say menu icon, and if it's small, display will be initial. And also we are gonna need here this menu. Let's create. I will say menu, and inside again we are gonna have some links. Let's copy here. Additionally, we are gonna have sign in and up. And for this menu, I'm not gonna write display none because I'm gonna change its position. It's gonna be position absolute, and at the beginning, it's gonna be beyond our screen. It's gonna be here. We are not gonna see it. When I click on this button, I'm gonna change its position. Let's come here. After menu icon, I will say menu. I will say position absolute. Let's give background color. It's gonna be black. And the text color will be white. And height will be 100 VH. So it's gonna contain all our screen, as you can see. And its width will be 50%, the half of the screen. Let's see. Okay, it's here, but we didn't give any position. If I say top 0 and right 0, it starts from top 0 and right 0 here. Right now, if I decrease this right side, let's say 100 pixels, as you can see, it's moving on the x-axis and it's moving to the left. If I say minus, it's gonna move to the right. If I say 200, it's gonna move more. And if I say 50%, we are not gonna see it anymore. It's beyond our screen. So this is gonna be its initial position. And when I click, the right will be 0. So I'm gonna write here a condition. To do that, I can create here a use state hook. But before, let's take care of this icon. It's too big. Inside menu icon, remember, we have an image. It's gonna be 36 pixels. And cursor will be pointer. Okay. By the way, for the medium screen, I can delete this background color because in our example, let's close here. As you can see, it's white. And after the large screen, we see this color. So inside our right div, I will say include MD. The background color will be transparent. Okay. Right now, let's create our functionality. Firstly, we are going to have a state. I'll say const open, set open, use state hook, and at the beginning it's gonna be false. And when we click on this button, we are gonna change this state. If it's false, it's gonna be true. And if it's true, it's gonna be false. So I'm gonna create here on click event, and we are gonna set our state, set open, and it's gonna be the opposite of the current value. You can use it like that, or you can say take the previous value and switch that value like that. It's exactly the same thing. And right now I can write here a condition. I will say if it's open, the class name will be menu and active. If it's not, it's gonna be only menu. Right now I can add here one more class name, and I will say if it's active, the right will be 0. Let's see. When I click, and perfect. By the way, we cannot see our icon anymore. To prevent this, I will come here and say z index and any number bigger than 1. Just like that. Okay, we can give here any transition effect inside menu. I will say transition is gonna take 1 second, and again timing function, and it's much better right now. But there's a problem. We cannot see our items because if you remember, for small screens we said display none, but it's not for our menu anchor tags. So I will say include small. The anchor tag will be display initial. Okay, right now they are here. Let's center them on this menu. To do that, again, I'm going to be using display flags, but this time they are going to be vertical, so the flags direction will be column. I will say align item center, justify content center, and perfect. Let's increase the font size. Okay, awesome. If you want to, you can add here some icons. You can change this menu icon, but for now, it can stay like that. If I change anything, you can see in the GitHub repository. But right now, you know how to create responsive navbar. Small screen, medium, large, and X large. Okay, we finished our navbar. Let's take care of our home page. So again, we are going to have two divs, left and right side. In the left side, we are going to give this background color. It's exactly the same. And we are going to have an image, some texts, and this search input. By the way, there is something wrong here. Let me fix it. Okay, so in this component, we can search for any location, any price. We can change the type of the search. Of course, we are going to give all the functionalities in the next tutorial. For now, we are just going to design. So let's create our home page. And after, we are going to create other pages. So again, I'm going to be using app.js X. Later, we are going to be using React Router DOM. But for now, let's open up the menu, and in the source folder, I will say pages or routes, whatever you want. Let's keep it like that. And the first one will be home page. Let's create our JSX file and CSS file. And I'm going to create my component. As you can see, I'm using this shortcut functional component as CSS. And it creates my component. It imports the CSS file and gives here a class name. If you wonder how I am doing this, you can visit my GitHub page again and find the Snippets repository. And here you can see my React component snippets. As you can see, if you say functional component sass, it's gonna create this functional component. And if you use arrow component sass, it's gonna create this arrow component. So you can copy this JSON, open up your snippets, search for JavaScript React.json, or if you are using TypeScript, you can choose this one and paste it here. And if you are interested in my other shortcuts, you can let me know in the comments or give a star for this project, so I can see that you are interested and I can update this repository. Okay. Let's close here. Functional component sass, and I'm gonna use it here. I can actually write here a div, let's say Navbar, and the content, and I'm gonna move my item here. Right now I'm gonna make my layout 100 VH. Okay, it's already 100 VH, and if I give background color for my content, you can see that it doesn't contain the rest of the screen. If you remember, our navbar is 100 pixels. You can basically say height. Let me move this here. Calculate 100 VH minus 100 pixels. In this case, it's gonna be what we want, but also if you don't wanna use calculate, you can use display flex, and our items will be vertical column. And I will just come here and say flex 1. 100 pixels is navbar, and the rest is our content. I'm using this class name because the content will be our homepage, our list page, single page, login and register pages. So they all are gonna be the same. Okay, I'm gonna remove here. And let's close here. And let's open up our homepage. So I'm gonna create here a text container, an image container, image, text, and I'm gonna do exactly the same thing. Homepage, display flags, the text container, and image, and again, flags will be 3, and it's gonna be 2. And I'm gonna be using exactly the same background color, remember, this color. And let's see. Okay, I can use 100% here, so we can see the background color better. And inside this image container, let's add our image. And it's gonna be, let's check, bg.png. Okay, as you can see, it's overflowing. I will say image with 100%. In this case, it's gonna fit inside our container, but in our example, as you can see, it's overflowing a little bit. So you can come here and increase this number, let's say 15, and it's overflowing to the right. To prevent this, again, we can use position absolute, and the right will be 0. And if you are using absolute positioning, the container should be, the parent should be position relative, just like that. If you don't use it, as you can see, it starts from the closest relative parent, which is the body. To prevent this, we are using relative. By the way, I can center my image. display flex, align item center. Okay, so what about the text container? Let's create this h1 tag. Actually, I'm gonna make this longer because I wanna show you something. As you can see, our text ends here. In this case, it's gonna be behind this image. To prevent this, we are gonna need here a padding. But if I give padding for the container directly, it's gonna push our image container. To prevent this, we are gonna need here a wrapper. Let's move this here, and inside text container, I will say wrapper. And right now I can give the padding for this wrapper. Inside text container, I will give padding, but it's going to be padding right only, and 100. Just like that. Right now we don't have any problem. Let's create our other items. I'm going to copy this. It's going to be our description. By the way, let's give here a title. P tag is going to be only one sentence. And after the P tag, we are going to have this search bar, but it's going to be a different component because we are going to have here tons of functionalities. Let's create that component. Inside components folder, I will say search bar. Search bar.jsx and SCSS. I'm gonna save and I will use it here after the P tag. And finally, we are gonna have this section that includes 3 boxes. So let's create here a div. And each individual box, h1 tag, let's say h2, and it's gonna be years of experience. I'm gonna duplicate this. Award gained. And this text. And that's all, I think. Let's check. Okay, let's give a style. After that, we can take care of this search bar. I can make this larger. And for the text container, I will come here and again display flags, flags direction column, and I'm gonna center my items. And gap between each text will be 50 pixels. Like that. But as you can see, it's not centered because it ends here. It's not 100%. To prevent this, I will just say height 100%. Okay, let's take care of this title. It's too small. It's gonna be bigger. And this parent div will be horizontal. Boxes, display flags, and justify content space between. Let's change the font. If you remember, we have h1 and h2 tags. Font size will be 36, and for the h2 tag, it's going to be smaller and also thinner. Just like that. So what about this search bar? Let's close everything here, open up our search bar, and let's see what we need. Firstly, we are going to have 2 divs. First one will be our types, and the second one will be this form, input form. So let's come here and I will say type, and one more div, and it's going to be form. Actually, I can directly say form. Inside this form, we have 3 inputs. It's going to be our location and placeholder. That's a city location. I'm going to duplicate this. It's going to be min price and maximum price. In this case, they are going to be number, and I'm going to change the name. First one will be minimum price and maximum price. You can also give here some restriction. I will say minimum will be 0. The maximum will be, let's say, 10 million. And again, it cannot be a negative number, and it cannot be more than 10 million. And finally, we are going to have our icon, search icon. And that's all, I think. Okay, I forgot types, buy and rent. So I will come here and say button, buy and rent. So let's give a style. I'm going to move my CSS file here. So inside type, we have 2 buttons. I'm going to give some padding, top and bottom, and left and right. Let's give a border, 1 pixel solid, and the color will be this gray color. And as you can see, those colors are different. When I click here, it's going to be active and the background color will be black. So again, we are going to need here a functionality. At the beginning, this button will be active, but we will be able to switch that. To do that, again, we are going to create a useState hook, and it's going to be our query object. Basically, it's going to store the type, the location, and these 2 prices. So I will say query, set query, useState hook. And at the beginning, the type will be by. The location will be empty string. Minimum price will be 0, and the maximum price will be again 0. So when I click on those buttons, I can change the type of this object. So I will say on click. And let's create a function. I will say const switch type. And we are going to call this function here. But we are going to send our value. If I click on this button, we are going to send buy. If I click on this button, I'm going to send rent. Buy. And this is going to be rent. But writing them like that is okay, but you shouldn't repeat yourself. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to come here and create my types. It's going to be either buy or rent. And using this array, I can show my buttons. Types.map, and for each type, I'm going to show a button. And right now this text will be my type. By the way, there is a warning here because we don't use any unique key. If you are using map, you have to give here a unique key. And we can use directly type because they are different, buy or rent. Let me close here. And right now we can pass here the type. And I'm going to take this type here, let's say value. And I'm going to set my query. I'm going to take the previous value and everything will be the same. So we are not going to touch location, minimum and maximum price. We are just going to change the type. And it's going to be this value. Of course, I should drop this like that. We are going to return that. And right now we can update our button according to this type. So let's come here and say class name, And I'm gonna write here a condition. And I will say if the query type, let's remove this code, equals the type of this button, it's gonna be active. Otherwise, it's gonna be empty. In this case, at the beginning, our type is by. And since type of the first button is by, its class name will be active. In this case, I can give different style. So I will say, if it's active, the background color will be black, the color will be white. Just like that. If I click here, as you can see, it's changing. But let's change this background color. It's gray, and also I'm gonna give cursor pointer. Background color will be white. And I can capitalize the first letter. To do that, I will use text transform and capitalize. Just like that. And if you check our example, you can see that this point and this point is rounded. And we don't have here any gray border, but in our example, they are sharp and we can see this gray border. Let's take care of them. I'm gonna choose the first item and make this point rounded. I will come here and say first child and border top left radius is gonna be 5 pixels. And I'm gonna delete the border right. It's gonna be none, because remember we have a border, and I'm gonna delete this one. I'm gonna save, and perfect. Let's do the same thing for the last child. I'm gonna copy and paste, and it's gonna be last child. In this case, top right radius and border left will be none. Okay, perfect. And what about our form here? As you can see, they are horizontal and we have a border here. After this type, I will say form. It's going to be exactly the same border. I will say display flags, justify content, space between. And I'm going to give some height. And space between each item will be 5 pixels. Okay, let's take care of inputs. I'm gonna delete the border. I'm gonna give some padding for the left and right side. And the width will be 200 pixels. And for the small screen, we are gonna decrease that. As you can see, this line is too thick. To prevent this, I can say border bottom, none. So we are going to have border for the left, up and right. Just like that. And what about this button? I'm going to change its color. It's going to be exactly the same color. And I'm going to increase its size. Button. I'm going to delete the border. We can click. And the background color will be our yellow color. And I will say flags 1. Okay, perfect. Maybe I can decrease this image size. Let's say 24. Okay, and that's all. What about the large screen? This is the X large. Large. As you can see, this button is too small. To prevent this, I can decrease the size of this price and this price. So I'm going to choose my inputs and I will say include large screen. I can decrease this padding. It's gonna be 5. But also I'm gonna decrease the size of the second and third item. So I can use nth child here and the second item and also the third item, and sizes will be 140 pixels. Of course, we should include our responsive CSS. Don't forget semicolon. And it's much better right now. And for this point, I can remove this image container. I'm going to open up my homepage CSS file. And again, I'm going to import my responsive CSS. Like that. And for the image container, I'll say include empty screen display none. Okay, perfect. We are gonna take care of these items, but before, let's finish our search bar. When it's small, they are gonna be vertical. So I'm gonna come here, find my form. Where is our search bar? Here. And I'll say include small, and if you remember, it's a flex box, so I'm going to change the direction. Just like that. Okay, if I try to do this right now, it's going to overflow because of this box, and this title is too big. So let's take care of them first. I'm going to come here. Let's first start from the beginning. For the large screen, I can decrease this image size. Include LG. It's gonna be 105%. And I'm gonna decrease this font size. I will copy this, find my title, and it's gonna be 48 pixels. And I can do the same thing for box H1 here. Let's say 32 pixels. Okay. And for the MD screen, we already removed our image here, so we don't need this space anymore. I'm gonna find my wrapper, and I will say include MD screen. We don't need any padding anymore. It's gonna be 0. And finally, for a small screen, we are gonna remove this box container here. Let's say display none, and it's gonna be small. And I can change the position of those items. They are centered, but I wanna move them on the top of the content. So again, wrapper, include small, and justify content flex start. It was center, right now it's gonna be flex start. Okay, awesome. So we can take care of our items right now. So I'm gonna open up my search bar. For the MD screen, we don't need this width anymore. So let's copy and paste this. And for MD screen, they are gonna be auto. So we are not gonna change the size. And this input also. It's gonna be for the first item. They are gonna be for the second and third items. And I can give some padding. I will say include small screen, and padding will be 20. Like that. Right now we don't need this border anymore. Let's find our form. Okay, we already have small here, and I'm gonna delete the border. At this time, I can use border for the first item, first type. I'm gonna find my button and the first child. And for the small screen, border bottom, 1 pixel solid and our gray color. And maybe I can give here some space. Inside type, margin bottom 5 pixels. Okay, what about this button again? It's gonna be bigger. So I can just give a padding. This is our button. For the small screen, it's gonna be 20. Okay, it's too big. Maybe 10. And awesome. Of course, we have a background color and it looks weird. This is how we can see our inputs. But if I remove, let's open up our layout. And I'm gonna comment this out. Of course, this time we are gonna see other colors. As you can see, our inputs are not visible. To prevent this, I can give border bottom. This is our input and small screen, border bottom, 1 pixel solid and the gray color. It's okay, but let's change this to full border. Okay, it's much better, I think. If you want to, you can remove this space and border. Let's see how it looks. I'm gonna remove this and this. Okay, it's much better. So we don't need that. And this one, I gave them because I forgot my background color. When it was pink, it was nice, but if the background is white, they are not gonna be visible. So we have to give those borders. Okay. This is the small screen. For the mobile version, we are gonna see it like that. Perfect. For bigger screens, it's gonna be like this. By the way, it's huge. For MD screen, we set auto, but let's make this 200 again. But for the small screen, it's gonna be auto. And second and third child again. Okay, let's check again. For the mobile screen, they are gonna contain all our container. For mobile screen, for the medium screen, they are gonna be 200 again. For the large screen, these two will be smaller. And for the biggest screen, they are gonna be 200 again. So this is our home page. Let's see, did I forget something or not? Okay, it's exactly the same. Only difference is this number. So we finished our home page. Let's take care of other pages. But before, we should learn React Router DOM. In our project, we just have a home page. But right now, I'm gonna create one more page here, and it's gonna be the list page. Let's create our function, functional component or arrow component, doesn't matter, and the CSS file. Okay, if you remember in app.js, we show here the home page directly. But how we are gonna show the list page when we change the URL? To do that, we are gonna be using React Router DOM. It basically allows us to switch between pages on the client side. To do that, we are gonna be using React Browser Router function, and inside we are gonna pass our URLs and the components that we want to show. For example, for the home page, in the example, it shows this component. In our example, we are going to show this homepage component. And for the about URL, it shows this component. So in our example, if the path is list, we are going to show this page. For the single page, login page, register page, we are going to do exactly the same thing. And after that, we are going to create a router provider in our app.js, and we are going to pass the router that we created here. Let's do that. I'm going to copy this, and we are going to install this library. Let's create a new terminal, and I will say npm install react router DOM. And after that, I'm going to open up my app.js, and let's import the necessary items like that. And I'm going to comment this out. We are going to use it later in different component. And I'm going to create here router provider, and we are going to pass inside our router. But before, we should create. Let's copy this and paste here. For the homepage, we are going to call our homepage function, this component. And for the list page, we are going to call list page component. Let's pass this here. And let's see. Of course, this is not our design because we are not using this layout anymore, but it's not important for now. We are going to fix that. The important thing is our path here. As you can see, this is the home page, but if I say list, as you can see, the list page. This is how we are using React Router DOM. But in our example, in the home page, we have a navbar. For the list page, again, we have the navbar. For the single page, login and register page, they all are the same. We are going to have a common component here, which is navbar. So instead of writing them again and again inside each page, we can create a layout. As we did here, we can create this component, and instead of this homepage content, we can show different pages. To do that, we are going to be using React Router DOM outlet component. By the way, we are not using those methods. I'm going to remove. And we don't need navbar here. So what I'm going to do is create here a new folder, and I will say layout. Layout.jsx, layout.scss. Let's create function. And inside, I'm gonna do exactly the same thing. Let's cut this from here and paste it here. Of course, we already have layout here. Just like that. Let's import our navbar. Okay, it's not here. Navbar and navbar. And instead of this homepage, we are going to be using the outlet component. Okay, so I'm going to open up the index CSS, layout CSS, and I'm going to copy everything here and paste it here. In this case, I should change this URL, and that's all. So we don't need this file anymore. I'm going to remove. And right now we are going to need some changes. Instead of creating all pages like that, I'm just going to add here my layout. This is going to be the main structure of our application, but I'm going to define here the children. Basically, we are going to add here our pages, and they are going to represent this outlet. So if I say path, the home page, the element, home page component, and one more, the list page and the list page component. So we are doing exactly the same thing here. The only difference is the main layout. Let's see right now. By the way, if you remember, we removed this file, so we don't need this here. And our navbar and list page. If I open up the home page, and perfect. This is how we are using React Router DOM layouts. So I can do the same thing for the single page. Let's create CSS. And the login page. Just like that. Let's make this lowercase. And I can use them here. But I want to show you one more thing here. When we list our single items, we are going to be using their IDs. For example, if I say ID 1, we are going to show here our single page. So this ID will be dynamic. It can be any number or string. In this case, we are going to define this with colon and after the name of the identifier. In this case, it's going to be ID. Let's call our single page here. And it's here. If I change the URL, again, single page. And in the next tutorial, using this ID, we are gonna fetch the single item and show it here. Okay. I can close here. Let's take care of our list page. In our example, again, we are gonna have two sections, left and right part. We are gonna add here our map. And for the left side, firstly, we are gonna add this filter component and after our item list. Let's do that. I'm gonna open up my application and let's close everything here and open up the list page. Before creating anything, firstly, I wanna add here a dummy data because we need to fetch these items first, but we don't have any database. So I'm gonna create here a new folder, let's say libraries, and inside, let's say dummy data.js. And let's copy and paste this data. You can find this in the GitHub repo. And let's say list data. Of course, I'm gonna export this and import here. Const data, list data. And right now, our items are ready. Let's create our sections and after show them here. So I'm gonna create a list container and map container. Let's say map, list, and again, I'm gonna do exactly the same thing here. Display flags, list container, and map, and it's gonna be flags 2, flags 3, and also I'm gonna give here our background color. Just like that. Let's make this 100%. Perfect. In our example, as you can see, there's a space here. That means we are gonna need a wrapper. You know how we do that. Wrapper. Let me take this here and close the menu. And inside this container, we have the wrapper. And I will say padding right 50 pixels. And inside this wrapper, we are going to have the filter section. So let's create a new component. I will say filter.jsx, filter.scss, and I'm going to create my function here. We are going to take care of this later. Let's use it here. Filter. Why it's not showing up? Components, filter, and filter. Okay, it's here. And after that, we are going to create a list here. And for each item in this list, we are going to create a card. And this card includes this image and these texts. So we are going to need one more component. Let's say card. And JSX. So using this data, I can map through my items, data.map for each item inside, call the card component. And remember, if you are using map, you should pass here a unique key. And also, we are going to pass here our item. Remember, each item includes ID, title, image, and other information here. We are going to use them inside our card component. Let's see our example. As you can see, we have 8 items here. So right now, we are ready to start our filter. Let's check. We have 3 items here, the title, location input, and on the bottom, we have 5 more inputs and this button. Let's do that. I can close them right now and open up my filter. Search results for, here is gonna be the location name. Let's say London. After that, we are going to have 2 divs, top and bottom. Inside top, we are going to have an input item. The label will be the city, let's say location. And I'm going to add here an input. Its ID will be city, name will be city, and the placeholder will be city location. Just like that. And under, we are going to have the type, the property, minimum and maximum price, and the bedroom number, and this button. So inside bottom, we are going to have 5 items. 2, 3, 4, 5, and after button, and inside our search image. Okay, let's change our labels and inputs. Inside bottom, the first one will be type. But as you can see, it's not an input. It's a select element. So let's remove this input. Instead, I'm going to create select. It's going to be type ID type, and inside we can create our options. The first option will be buy, and the second one will be rent. Just like that. So I will do the same thing for here. Property. Again, select name and ID, and inside, let's see what we have. Apartment, house, condo, or land. Just like that. And after that, we are gonna have minimum price. Let's write our label. It's gonna be an input, but type will be a number. And for the placeholder, let's say any, because we already have label here, we know that it's a minimum price. Actually, we can create here options. By default, it's gonna be any. It doesn't have any value. And I will do the same thing here. So at the beginning, everything will be any. Of course, in the home page, if we search for any location and price and this type, we are gonna update them. But again, it's gonna be in the next tutorial. And let's change here. Maximum price. And again, any. And finally, bedroom. And any. Okay, so let's give a style. Firstly, I'm gonna decrease this font weight. And all these items will be vertical. So let's open up our CSS file. Move this here. And for this h1 tag, I will say font weight 300 and font size will be 24 pixels. Just like that. Let's separate those items. Display flags, flags direction column. Gap between items 10 pixels. Okay, so let's take care of our top section. But before, I want to take care of our items because they are all same. We have the label and after the input or select. So I'm gonna choose item first. And they are going to be vertical. And gap between them, let's say 2. And I'm going to choose the label here. And font size will be just 10 pixels. Just like that. And let's change their sizes. They are too big. I'm going to choose input. And also select. And they are going to be 100 pixels. I will give some padding inside and I'm gonna change the border. Solid, and let's make this light gray. Like that. I wanna change the border radius. 5 pixels and font size will be 14. Okay, right now I can take care of the top input. Top. And I'm going to choose the input. We said 100 pixels, but this one will be 100%. Okay, by the way, why there is no gap between them? Oh, I forgot pixels. Okay. And what about bottom? They are going to be horizontal. display flags, justify content, space between, and in any case, I'm gonna give gap between my items. Okay, for this button, again, it's gonna be 100 pixels. Padding will be the same. I'm gonna delete the border. Cursor will be pointer. Background color will be our yellow color. And the image inside, as you can see, it's too big. Let's say 24 pixels. Okay, awesome. Let's check. Perfect. And what about those cards? I'm gonna close them, open up list page and list CSS. And inside wrapper, I will say vertical flex box and gap between each item will be 50. And there is something important here. As you can see, I can scroll down. So I need to say here, if it overflows on the y-axis, we can scroll. Okay. So let's see what's inside our cart. We are gonna have two sections, the image container and the text container. And inside this text container, we are gonna have the top section and the bottom section. It's really easy. Let's create. I'm gonna close them, open up cart and CSS. Let's move this here. And inside, I'm gonna create an image container, but this container is gonna be a link. So I should use an anchor tag, but since we are using React Router DOM, we don't need this anchor tag anymore. We are gonna be using React Router DOM link component. Just like this. And its class name will be image container. And also we are gonna have a text container. To add here href, you have to use to, and I'm gonna pass here my item ID. If you remember, we passed our item as a prop, we can use it. So I will say slash and item.id. And inside, we are gonna have the image, and we can show item.image. Just like that. As you can see, when I hover over here, its ID is 1. Before creating anything else, I want to take care of this image because it's too big and we cannot see anything here. I will say display flags, gap between image and text container, and image container, and text. Let's give a size for our containers. In the example, as you can see, this image is smaller than the text container. So again, we can use flexbox. It can be 2 units and 3 units. Flex 2, flex 3. And also I need to add here a height, let's say 200. And for the image, I will say width and height will be 100%. Object width will be cover. And I'm gonna give some border radius, let's say 10 pixels. Okay, so what about our text container? Firstly, we are gonna have the title, the address, and inside this address we have the icon and the text, price section, and this bottom div. Let's create quickly. I will say h2 tag and its class name will be title. And again, I'm gonna be using a link here. When we click on that, we can open up the single page, item.title, and I'm gonna call exactly the same href here. Remember, for single page, we are using the item ID. And after that, let's create a p tag and give class name, address. Inside, we have our pin.png and let's say a span, and it's going to be item.address. Let's open up our data again, and remember, it has title, image, bedrooms, bathrooms. Actually, let's change those names. I will just say bedroom and bathroom. Okay. We have address and our location, but we are gonna need this later when we create our map. After this address, another p tag, and it's gonna be our price. Let's say $sign and item.price. And finally, I'm gonna create here a div, and it includes two sections. Let's say features and icons. So firstly, I will say features, icons, and each feature has an image. The first one will be bed.png and the number of bedrooms. And one more is going to be bathroom. Okay. And finally, inside each icon, we are going to have an image. The first one will be save.png, and the second one will be chat.png. But we don't have our images. Let me move them here. Again, they are going to be in the starter branch, so don't worry about them. When you download the starter branch, you are going to have all. And let's see. I'm going to refresh and our icons are here. Okay, let's give a style right now. Firstly, for each image inside this text container, I can give width and height. So I'm gonna come here and say width and height. Okay, perfect. Let's give a flexbox for this text container and separate our items. Justify content, space between, and in any case, I'm gonna give a gap. Okay, let's decrease this font size. Let's write it here. Title, it's gonna be 20, font weight will be 600, and the color will be a little bit softer. Let's say 444. And also I'm gonna give here a transition effect. It's gonna take 0.4 seconds. And when we hover over, its color will be black. And I'm gonna increase its size. It's just gonna be 1%. Just like that. And what about this address? I'm gonna decrease its font size and I can give here a gap. After this title, I'll say address. It's gonna be 14 pixels. Let's say gap between items will be 5. And I'm gonna change the color. Okay. For this price, I'm gonna give a background color. It's gonna be this yellow color. And I'm gonna change its size, its weight, and give here border radius. Let's say 20 pixels. Font weight, padding will be 5, border radius will be 5. And I'm gonna change the background color. Let me copy and paste. Okay, as you can see, it's too long, but its size will be the maximum content. It should end here. So I will say with maximum content. Okay, and what about this bottom? Firstly, I'm going to separate my items. These two will be on the left, and these two will be on the right. So I will say bottom, justify content, space between, and in any case, I'm going to give gap. I'm doing this because when we shrink our page for the mobile screens, they can be too close to each other. To prevent this, I'm giving here a gap. And inside, remember, we have features. Again, it's going to be flexbox, gap 20, font size will be 14. And for each item, they are going to be vertically centered, and I'm going to give here a space. And let's give a background color. Oops, it's going to be 5. And it's going to be really light gray. Just like that. By the way, this item should be here. I set space between. Let's take care of our icons, and after I'm gonna check that inside bottom, gap 20 pixels. For each icon, I'm gonna give a border. Let's give some padding from top and bottom, left and right. And border radius, again, 5 pixels. We can click on them. And I'm gonna center the item inside this image. So again, align item center, justify content center. And when I hover over, the background color will be light gray. Just like that. These two items should be on the left. Let me check here first. The bottom inside we have features and icons. Oh, I said 200. Okay, it's here. So that's all, I think. But there's a problem here. As you can see, I cannot scroll. Let's check our list page here. As you can see, we don't have any height. If I say 100%, okay, still there is something wrong. Our layout is 100 VH. Let's check. As you can see, and 100 pixels is this navbar, and the rest of the container should be our content. Let me give here background color. So basically it's 100 VH minus 100 pixels. If I take this back, let's remove this, and if I use height and calculate method, and right now we have a certain height. We are using 100% of this, and in wrapper. And right now it works. But as you can see, if I scroll down, we don't have any space here, and it looks a little bit weird. To prevent this, I can give here some padding bottom. And right now it's much better. Okay. And what about this map? To create our map, we are going to be using an open source project. Of course, there are better options like Google Maps or Mapbox, but in order to use them, you have to give your credit card information. But this tutorial for everyone, so I don't want you to give any credit card information, and I know some of you don't even have. So we are going to be using this open source map. Its quality is a little bit low, but anyway, it's enough for this project. As you can see, when I click on this pin button, it shows this pop-up. So let's see how we are going to use it. Firstly, I'm going to create here a new component. Let's close them. And inside components, I will say map. Map.jsx. Let's create our function. And right now we are gonna need our library. And it's gonna be React Leaflet. It uses this open source map and it's a great component here. We can pass the center location, we can arrange the zoom, we can show any pop-ups. So let's install this library. We're gonna come here. We are not gonna be using CDN. Let's add this leaflet and React Leaflet. I'll open up terminal. And after that, we are going to be using this map container component. Actually, let's come back. This example was great. As you can see, we are going to need our position to pass here. For each different city, we can show this marker pop-up. It basically will be those pins. Let's copy this. And I'm gonna paste it here. Actually, I can directly paste like that. Let's import them. Marker. Let me close here. And I'm gonna give here my position. Let's give exactly the same for here and see. As you can see, it's not here because we didn't give any width and height. Let's give class name here. It's gonna be map, and I'm gonna use it here. And it will be 100%. And I'm gonna give some border radius. Okay, let's use our component here. I'm gonna open up list page, and instead of this text, I'm gonna call my map component. And if you remember, we have a size here, width is flex to, and I also want to give here the height, and our map is here. But there is a problem here. We don't have its own CSS. To prevent any visual error, I'm gonna paste its CSS. Just like that. And right now, our map is ready. I can drag and drop. I can zoom in and out. Let's change this zoom, by the way. It's 13, but I'm gonna make this 7. I will refresh. As you can see, it's much better right now. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna show different pins using each item here. So I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna pass, let's say, items, and I can directly pass here data. Let's take it. And for each item, I'm gonna show different marker. Actually, I can create a new component here. Let's say pin. And pin.jsx. And I can use this marker here. I will cut and I will paste it here. Let's import them. So I'm going to take the item here and I will use its position, lat and long, and inside pop-up, let's see again. We are going to have our image and text container, which includes the title, the bedroom number, and the price. So let's say pop-up container, I'll say image. We are going to pass here the item image. And after that, we are going to have a text container that includes our title. I will use React rather than link, item.title. And again, it's going to be the ID of the item. And after that, let's create a span, bed, item.bedroom. And let's create here a bold tag, and it's going to be the price, item.price. Let's use this component here. Firstly, I'm going to map through my items. And for each item, we are going to call our component. And we will pass our item here. And again, we need a unique key. Each item has an ID. We can use it. And let's see. By the way, we don't need them anymore. Okay. Okay. There is something wrong here. Okay, there is a typo here. I'm gonna refresh and perfect. Of course, the image is too big. Let's fix this. I'm gonna open up CSS. We have pop-up container here, image, text container, and our texts. I will say pop-up container will be display flags, and image will be 64 pixels, height, and it's going to be object with cover, and let's give some border radius. And for the text container, again, it's going to be vertical, and justify content, let's say space between. So we don't need this class name here. Okay, perfect. So this is how we can use map. So user can scroll down and choose the item here, or check for any place using this map. You can choose the location. When they click on this item, they can see the information of that place. So let's take care of this single page. Let's see what we are going to have. Again, two sections, this post information and the features of this post. Let's create quickly. I'm going to open up single page. And inside, let's say details. And one more is going to be features. Details and features. And again, flags will be 2. And I'm going to give my background color as we always do, like that. And it's going to be flags 3. Of course, it should be display flags. Let's say 100%. And inside details, we are going to have this image section and the information section. But for the images, I'm going to create a new component because when I click here, as you can see, we have a slider. When I click here or here, we are going to update the index number of this slider image. So for each update, we shouldn't re-render the whole component. So let's create here a slider component. But before, I'm going to add here a wrapper because as you can see, there's a padding here. Wrapper. And I will do the same thing for this side because we have a padding also. So I'm going to duplicate this and move it here. So we have wrapper here and here. Let's say padding right, and here it's going to be 20 from left and right. Okay, I will save here and open up my side menu. And here, let's say slider .css and JSX. Okay, let's call it here inside wrapper. Let's import quickly. Okay, and after that we are going to have an info section. Let's say info. And inside this, we are going to have two divs. This top div and the bottom. Top, bottom. Before creating others, let's take our data. Again, inside dummy data, I will paste my data. So we will be able to reach those images, title, price, description, and others. So let's open up and I'm gonna paste it here. As you can see, single post data, we have title, price, images, and other information. And here we have the user data, which is gonna be the owner of this place. Okay, let's use it. Oops. Here, import from dummy data. Okay, so I can pass this image array to my slider. So I'll say images single post data dot images. Okay, after that, inside this top, we are going to have again two sections, this post information and the user information. So let's say post user, and inside post, let's say h1 tag single post data dot title. It's here. And after, again, we are going to have an icon and text and the price. Let's say address pin.png and a span that will show our address. And finally, we are going to have the price div single post data dot price. Just like that. And for the user side, we are just going to have this image and the username. Image user data. Don't forget to import this dot image and a span that shows the username. User data dot name. Okay, let's give a style. Inside wrapper, we have the info section. And inside this, we have the top section and the bottom section. And in the top section, we have the post and user sections. And we have an h1 tag here, address and price. And inside user, we have an image. And I'm going to change its size so we can see better. And border radius will be 50%. So it's going to be a circle. Okay, perfect. Let's make them horizontal. I will say display flex and justify content space between. Just like that. And what about this post section? It's going to be vertical. And I'm going to give space between each item. Inside post, display flags, flags direction column. And gap between items 20 pixels. Let's decrease this font weight like that. For this address, gap between items will be 5 pixels. Align item center. Color will be this gray color. And font size will be smaller. Okay. Let's decrease the size of this image. Let's say 16 pixels. Perfect. For this price, I'm just going to give background and some padding. Let's say 5. Background color will be this yellow color. It's our main color, but I just decreased its opacity. And the border radius will be 5 pixels. Okay, as you can see, its size is too big. Remember how we are handling this. I will say width, maximum content. And let's say size is going to be a little bit bigger. And font weight will be thinner. Okay, perfect. And for the user, as you can see, there's a container here. Basically, I will give a padding and they are going to be vertical and I'm going to center my items. Inside user, align item center, justify content center, and gap between items will be 20. Let's give padding 50 pixels from left and right. I will give border radius 10 pixels. The background color will be our yellow color and font weight will be 600. Just like that. And for the bottom, we are just going to show our description. So I will say single post data dot description. Okay, let's give a space here. Let's say 50 pixels. Color will be a little bit softer. And I will give line height. It's going to be 20 pixels. Okay, so what about this slider section? Firstly, I'm going to create this container. This first image will be 3 times bigger than this section. And after, we are going to handle this slider component. Let's open up. If you remember, we passed here our images here. Let's take that. And I'm going to create 2 divs. First one will be big image and small images. And inside this big image, we are going to show the first image. Images. Remember, it's an array, and I'm going to take the first image. And here, I'm going to show the rest of the images. So let's get rid of the first item. Images. And we are going to get rid of the first item. Right now, we can map through the rest of the items. Let's say image. And we are going to take their index numbers. And for each image, and it's gonna be this single image. Let's self-close this. And remember, if you are using map, you should give unique key, and it's gonna be this index number. Okay, they are huge right now, so let's give a style. For the container, we are gonna give flexbox, and after using flags, we are gonna change their sizes. So let's open up here our slider. I will say 100%. Let's give some height. Display flags, and gap between items will be 20. And inside we have the big image and small images. It's gonna be flags 1, flags 3. And the image inside 100%, height 100%, object fit will be cover, and I'm gonna give some border radius 10 pixels, and finally cursor pointer. Actually, those images will be exactly the same, so I can move this here instead of writing them again and again. And perfect. As you can see, we don't have any height. So for the images inside this container, I will give a height, and it's gonna be 100 pixels, like that. Let's separate them using justify content. It's gonna be space between. For any case, I'm gonna give gap. Just like that. Awesome. Let's give a space here, by the way. For this info, I will say margin top. Okay. So let's create our slider. When I click, we are gonna see this container. Basically, its position will be absolute, and it's gonna fit inside the whole screen. And inside this container, we are gonna have 3 sections. This arrow, our image, and another arrow. So let's create inside slider, what I can say, full slider, and inside arrow, another arrow, and between we are gonna have our image. So let's say image container. Inside arrows, we are gonna show our icon, arrow.png. I will move this here also. Like that. So let's give position absolute and background color, and after we can see better. I will come here and let's write it here actually. Full slider, position absolute. It's gonna be full screen. Top will be 0, left will be 0, and the background color will be black. And I will say display flags, and I will give size for my items. Arrow and image container. So our image will be 10 times bigger than our arrows. So I will say flags 1 and flags 10. And the image inside 100%, height 100%, object fit. Okay, they are huge. Inside arrow, it's gonna be 50 pixels. By the way, let's add here an image. I'm just gonna take the first image for now. Images and the first item. Arrows are still big. Let's say justify content. Space between, and I will center them vertically. Okay, perfect. let's center our icons in the arrow. Align item center, justify content center. And for this second item, I'm going to change its direction. Instead of using different image, I'm just going to change its style. So I'm going to come here and say class name, and it's going to be right. And I will say, if it's right, transform, rotate 180 degrees. Just like that. And let's add here a close button. After this arrow, I'll say close. And you can add here any image, but I'm just gonna use X. After this image container, I'll say close. Position will be absolute, top 0. Text color will be white. I'm gonna change the font size, it's gonna be big. Font weight will be bold. And I will give some padding here. Perfect. When I hover over, I'm gonna change the cursor. Okay, so right now we are gonna need here a logic. Let's close here. This is our example. At the beginning, the image index number of full screen slider will be null. So we are not gonna see it here. But when I click one of those images, I'm gonna update the image index. So this component will be here, and using this and these buttons, I'm gonna update the index number again. Let me show you and you are gonna understand better. I will open up my example and let's close here for now. And I will say const image index set image index is going to be a use state hook, and at the beginning is going to be null. So this component will be depending on the image index. Let's cover this, and I will say if image index doesn't equal null, you can show it. Otherwise, we are not gonna see. As you can see, it's not here. But if I update this, let's say any index number, as you can see, it's here. Okay, so when I click on big image on click event, I'm gonna update my index state, set image index, and it's gonna be the first item because we are using it here. And I can do the same thing for the small images. When I click on them, I'm going to update my image index. In this case, it's going to be the index number of the image. So when I click here, it's going to be 0, 1, 2, and 3. And using those index numbers, we can show image here, image index. Let's see, I'm going to click, as you can see, the first image. Of course, we don't have close functionality here. Let's add on click, set image index number. Again, it's going to be null. I will click and it's gone. Second image. Okay, there is something wrong here because if you remember, we just removed the first item. In this case, the second item's index number is 0 right now. To prevent this, I'm just going to add here +1. Let's come back and try again. First item, this image. Second, third, and fourth. Perfect, it works. What about those buttons? When I click here, I'm gonna decrease the index number, but be careful, if the index number is 0, it shouldn't be -1. Instead, we are gonna show the last item. And here, exactly the same. If the image is 0, it's gonna be 1, again 2, 3, and after the maximum length, it shouldn't be 4. Instead, we are going to show the first item, which is index number 0. Let's do that. Let's create here a function, change slide, direction. And when I click on the first item, first arrow, the direction will be left. Now for the other arrow, it's going to be right. We can write our conditions with question mark and colon, but it can be a little bit confusing for you. Instead, I'm going to be using if and else. So I'll say if the direction is left, do something. If it's right, do something else. And here again, if image index equals 0, do something, otherwise do something else. For here, if image index equals images.length, do something, if not, do something else. This is the main structure. By the way, the length of our images are 4. We have 4 images, but as I said, the maximum number should be 3. Because we are using index, so instead of length, I will say length minus 1. Okay. So right now, we can update our image index. If it's 0, as I said, it shouldn't be minus 1. In this case, it's going to be length minus 1, which is the last item. If not 0, we are just going to decrease the number. Image index minus 1. And for here, if it's the last item, we can't increase this more. We are just going to show the first item. Set image index and the first item. If it's not the last item, we are just going to increase the number. Image index plus 1. And that's all. It's that easy. Let's check right now. I'm going to click here. And perfect. And this one. Okay, it works. I'm going to choose this item. Perfect. Previous or next. Okay, it works. So what about the right section? Let's check what we have. I can close here, by the way. Okay, for each section, we are going to have some titles. Let's create them, actually. I can close this slider. And inside this wrapper, let's create a p tag. And I will say class name title. The first one will be general. Let's say room sizes or just sizes. Nearby places. And location. Okay, I can remove the rest. And inside general, we are going to have a container, but as you can see, they are similar. So I can create exactly the same container for each item. And this container will be vertical, and this is going to be horizontal. So let's come here, and I will say list vertical. And for the places, it's going to be horizontal. And what about sizes? Again, we are going to have a container. It's going to be horizontal, but items are different. So let's come here and say sizes. For the location, we are going to have a map container. And inside, we are going to call our map. Map container. And we are going to call our map. Let's import this. just like that. But remember how it works. We are taking the items, but in the single page, we have only one item. I will say items. I will add here an array and send my single post data. Of course, we cannot see it right now because we don't have any size. It can stay like that. And after location, finally, we are going to have some buttons. And inside this chat icon and send a message. Save icon, save the place. One more. Save the place. Okay. Right now, let's create those items. For each item, we are going to have an icon and a text container. So inside list vertical, I will say feature, the single feature. It's going to have an image. And after feature text, we are going to have a span, which is the title, and a p tag. Let's see, renter is responsible. So let's create two more features here. This is going to be path policy, path png, path policy, and paths allowed. And finally, the fees. Fee.png and this text. And inside sizes container, we have 3 items, and each item has an icon and a text. So I'll say size container, an image, size.png, and the span is 80 square feet or meter. And 2 more. 2 beds, 1 bathroom. And it's going to be bath png and bath png. And I'm going to add exactly the same items, same features, but I'm not going to waste time anymore. I'll just copy and paste. We already created here. So inside places, I will just paste them. School, bus, and restaurant. And finally, we are ready to start our styling. Let's come here. As you can see, our images are too big. Let's make them smaller. I'll save, close here, and open up my CSS file. Let's find our features. As you can see, we have a wrapper. I will just say display flex and gap between each item. And after that, for each image, size will be 24. Just like that. And what about those titles? Let's give font weight for each title. Font weight will be bold. Font size will be bigger. And I will give margin bottom. Just like that. And for this container, I can separate my items. Let's see. Here, list vertical. flex direction, gap between each item, and I'm gonna give some padding, and the background color will be white, and border radius will be 10 pixels. Perfect. And let's make each item horizontal. I'm gonna choose feature, but remember it's also inside the horizontal list. So I'm gonna use it before my list or after, doesn't matter. Display flex, align item center, and gap between items will be 10 pixels. Just like that. And for the image, I'm gonna give a background color. It's gonna be our yellow background. Just like that. And for this span, it's gonna be font weight bold, and I'm gonna decrease this size. Remember, we have feature text. For span, font weight bold. For the p tag, font size 14. Okay, perfect. And by the way, where is our title? Oh, what did I do here? Okay, general is alright, there is nothing wrong, but I covered this. It's gonna be sizes, and our div is here. And for this one, what was that? Nearby places. And our horizontal div is here. How did I do that? Okay, it should be alright. Okay, so let's take care of this horizontal list. I'm gonna duplicate this, but this time it's gonna be horizontal, but this time it's not gonna be column. I will remove this gap. It's gonna be again 2010, white, border radius, and I can say justify content space between. I can separate them like that. Okay. What about sizes? Again, it's gonna be horizontal. Here. Justify content. Perfect. And for each item, I will do the same thing and separate them. For each size, display flags, align item center, gap between items will be 10, and the background color will be white. Let's give some padding and border radius. And perfect. And for this location, we are gonna need some width and height. Otherwise, we can't see our map. So I will say location, or what was the name? Map container. It's gonna be 100%, and height will be, let's say, 200. Okay, perfect. It's here. And for those buttons, exactly the same thing. And for each button, I'm gonna give some padding. I'm gonna center my items, give some space, and the background color will be white. But we are gonna have this border. So it's gonna be 1 pixel, solid, and our red color. And finally, border radius 5 pixels and cursor pointer. Okay, those images are too big. Maybe we can decrease the number. Okay, it's much better. But remember, our page is 100 VH. So if we have more information here, or if we have a small screen, it's gonna overflow. And since we are using overflow hidden, we will not be able to see the rest of the items. To prevent this, I will find my component, this div, and I will say height 100%, and if it overflows, you can scroll. I will do the same thing for this container, because if we have a long description, it can overflow. So for details, just like that. Okay, awesome. So what about the responsive design? For the LG, maybe I can decrease these sizes. Before, I should import my file. Just like that. And I'm gonna find my size. And I will say include, if it's LG, font size will be smaller. Let's make this 12. Okay, perfect. And there is no problem. But for the medium screen, we can move this section to under our information section. So it's not gonna be horizontal anymore. So I'm gonna come here at the top of the file, and for the medium screen, include medium, flex direction will be column, just like that. But as you can see, we have a problem here because we said details section is flex 3 and features section is flex 2. But right now we don't need this because they are vertical. So I'm gonna copy this. For the details, flex will be none, and the height will be the maximum content. I will do the same thing for the features, flex none, maximum content. And this time we cannot scroll because size is 100%. So what I'm gonna do is right here, overflow, scroll. Just like that. I can give a space here. Margin bottom. Perfect. And maybe here. Okay. And what about small screen? As you can see, there is nothing wrong. Okay, actually, we don't have any problem. What about our slider? Okay, those items are too big. So let's copy this, open up slider. I will paste, and I will find my arrow. And for the MD screen, actually, it's going to be our image. It was 50 pixels, but this time it's going to be 30. And if it's even smaller, it's going to be 20. Okay. And as you can see, our menu button is here. We don't want to see that. It should cover all our screen. So I'm going to come here and say Z index bigger than everything. Oops, not here. Full slider. And it's going to be bigger than everything. Just like that. Okay, we don't have any problem. Perfect. So we finished our single page. So let's take care of the profile page. So let's come back, close everything, and open up our menu. Right now I can close my folders and create a new page. And it's going to be profile. Let's create CSS. And JSX. And we should define our new route in the app.js. So I will come here, create a new path, and it's going to be profile. Let's open up. Okay, it's here. So firstly, to see this page, we should be logged in. In this case, instead of these sign in and sign up buttons, we are going to see our user image, username, and the profile button here. Let's check the example. As you can see, user information, profile link, and this is our profile page. Let's take care of this. Firstly, I'm going to open up my Navbar, and I'm going to create here a dummy data. Const user, it's going to be true or false. In the next video, we will be authenticated, but for now, for the design part, we can use that user. Inside the right part, I'm going to cover my links, and I will say if there's a user, create a user div. If not, show these links. Of course, we need a parent element here. I can use React fragments. Just like that. So if there's a user, we are going to show this user div, and inside we are going to have our user image. Let me just paste here. After that, we are going to have the username, let's say John Doe. And finally, we will have a link, and it's going to be our profile page. And I will say profile. Link from React Router DOM. Okay. It's not here because user is false. Let's make this true. Okay. Let's give a style. I'm going to open up my CSS file. Inside the right div, let's create here our user. As we always do, display flags, and font weight will be bold. And the image inside, let's say 40 pixels, is going to be a circle, object fit, and I will give margin right. So I'm going to separate my image and this text. And what about this button? Let's say button. Padding will be 12 and 24 from left and right. Background color will be our yellow color. Cursor pointer. I'm gonna delete the border. Okay, it's not here. Because it's a link. Let's give here class name, and I will say profile. Just like that. You might want to show here any notification. Let's check. As you can see, let's create this quickly. Inside our link, let's say notification, and after our link. Of course, its position will be absolute. Notification, position will be absolute. In this case, the parent should be relative. And its background color will be red. Text color will be white. And let's make this circle. I'm gonna give some width and height. And I will center my text inside. Okay, we didn't give any position. We set absolute, and the top will be -8, and the right will be -8. Just like that. And let's check our responsiveness. For the small page, maybe we can remove this name, or we can directly remove this user container. It doesn't matter. Let's remove only this span. User image, and after we have a span. And for the small screens, I will say display none. Just like that. Okay. What about our page? Again, we have two parts, user details and the chat component. Let's do that. I will close them. And inside profile page, I will say details and the chat container. Inside, we are going to have a wrapper. And here, because remember, we are going to give some paddings here. There's a space. And for the chat container, again, we are going to have a space. And for each container inside details, we have some titles like that. Let's create them. But there is something important here. As you can see, our title includes this test and this button. So it's going to be a flex box. I will say title, h1 tag, and let's say user information. And after a button, update profile. Let's create two more. It's gonna be my list. Create new post. Saved list. And we are not going to have any button here. Okay. They are going to be horizontal. And after that, we are going to have this user information container. After this title, let's say info. Avatar will be an image. And let's paste our user image here. Okay. Another span is going to be username John Doe. But here is going to be bold. And one more, and it's going to be email. Okay. And after that, we are going to have a list component that we can show our posts. As you can see, this is the cart component, so it's going to be easy. Let's open up our menu and create a new component. And let's say list. I'm creating new component because when we open this profile page, we can use suspense for our list. And during the loading process, we can show any indicator. I will say list as CSS, JSX, and let's use some cards here. To do that, again, we are going to be needing our dummy data. If you remember, we have the list data here. We can use it again. I will say map for each item, call the cart component. Unique key will be item.id, and the item will be item. Let's import them. Okay, it's not here. Cart and cart. Of course, from. And one more, and it's gonna be library and dummy data. Let's call this here. After this title, I'll say list. And one more, and it's gonna be saved list. Okay, let's take care of this info site. It's gonna be vertical, but before, let's separate our main items, these details and the chat container. I'm gonna open my CSS file here, close my menu, and display flags, height 100%, as we always do. And details, chat container, flags 2, flags 3. I'm gonna pass here quickly because we are always doing the same thing here. And the background color, this color, height will be 100%. And inside we have a wrapper. And I'm gonna give a padding to left and right. And what about this wrapper? I'm gonna give padding to only right side. It's gonna be 50 pixels, and it's gonna be vertical flags box. And gap between each item 50 pixels. And for the title, again, flags box. Align item center, justify content, space between. So we are gonna separate them. Of course, it's not here because our image is stretching our container. Let's take care of this first, and after we can handle our title. So I will say user info. It's gonna be vertical, and let's say 20 pixels gap. And for user image, again for the pixels, and circle. And object width will be cover. Okay, right now we can take care of our title style and this button style. So I will say h1 tag, font weight will be 300. And for the button, I'm gonna give some padding. And the background color will be our yellow color. Cursor pointer. I'm gonna delete the border. And perfect. Let's check. Okay. Let's separate those items, by the way. Inside information, we have our text and this image. Let's separate them. So I will say span, align item center, and gap. Just like that. And let's give space between our items here. Inside list, I will just say column and gap between items. And that's all. As you can see, I cannot scroll down because our page size is 100%. So I'm gonna come here. For details, I'll say If overflows, scroll. Just like that. And I can give padding here. Okay, it's much better right now. And what about this chat container? Inside, I'm going to create a new component. Let's open up menu. And I will say chat. Style. And JSX. Let's close everything and open up this. Let's check what we are going to have. Firstly, we have the messages section and this chat section. Let's create them. Messages, and let's say chat box. And here I will say h1 tag and messages. And after that, every single message that we have here. We are going to have user image, username, and the latest message. Let's do that. I'm going to create a message here. Image, span, and the latest message. Let's write here some random message, and it's going to be shorter. And again, I'm going to paste my image here. And we are going to have multiple messages like that. Of course, later we are going to be using map, but for now it can stay like that. Let's open up our CSS file here. Firstly, I will say 100% column, and I can give size for my items. As you can see, the messages container and this chat box have exactly the same size, so we can use flex 1 for both. Flex 1, chat box, flex 1. Let's write here something, and by the way, we should import this in our profile page. I will say chat. Okay, of course, I forgot again this image. Let's take care of this quickly. Inside we have message and image is here. It's gonna be a circle, and finally object fit. Okay, let's give a style for our messages. Firstly, I'm gonna give here column, and I'm gonna separate them. And if we have many items, we will be able to scroll. Like in the example, as you can see, I can scroll. And after that, let's decrease the font weight for the h1 tag. And after, we can give here a background color, some padding, and border radius 10 pixels. And I'm going to center everything just like that. Let's give a space between them. And the cursor will be pointer. And for the username, as you can see, we have a span. Font weight will be bold, just like this. But right now our box is smaller. Let's add one more message here. Okay, they are not equal. Let's come here. Background color, this purple. Okay, it's not the half of the container. Inside chat component, we set height 100%. but it's not 100%. Let's open up our profile page. For this wrapper, it should be 100%. Okay, it works right now. Because the parent should be 100 first, and after our items. So we can scroll here, and when we choose any item here, we are going to show our chat box. Let's check. As you can see, we have 3 sections: this top bar, this center section, and the bottom, that we can add a new message. And here we can close it, and again when we open any chat, we are gonna see it here. Let's refresh, and let's create our chat box. Let's close here for now, and I'm gonna create top, center, and bottom. Inside we are going to have our user, which has an image and the username. Let's again add our image here, and after we are going to have a close button, and it's going to be X again. And inside center we are going to have some chat messages. So let's say chat message. I'm going to write here a random message, and it's going to be a date here. Let's say 1 hour ago. And I'm going to duplicate this, and some of them will be our messages. So let's say all. This one, just like that. And finally, inside bottom, we are going to have a text area. And finally, a button. Let's say send. Okay, we can give our style right now. Let's open this here. Inside chat box, I'm going to give background color is going to be white. And we are going to have 3 sections. So I will say column and justify content space between. We are going to have top, center, and bottom. And for the top, we are going to have this background color, and it's going to be a flex box, and we are going to separate our items. User here, close button is here. And of course, I should decrease this image size. So let's say background color. I'm going to give some padding. Font weight will be bold. And I'm going to separate my items. And inside we have a user. Again, I'm going to separate them. And for the image, let's give 30 pixels. And as always, object with cover. And for the close button, I will just say cursor pointer. Just like that. Oops. Because here is user, it should be outside. Okay, perfect. So what we can do here, we can add our functionality, and we can write here a condition. To do that, again, we are going to be using a use state hook. Let's say chat, set chat, and use state is going to be null at the beginning. And if we have a chat, if we choose any message here, we are going to show this chat box. So I can write my condition here. Let's choose chat box. And I will say, if we have a chat. Right now it's not here. But if I say anything positive, like true, we are going to see it here. And when we click on this button, again, it's going to be null. So let's find close, on click event. Set chat will be, let's say, null again. Just like that. Okay, before those messages, let's take care of this bottom. As you can see, we have a border here, and again, they are horizontal. So I'm gonna give border top 2 pixels, solid, and this color. Let's give some height. Display flags, align item center, and justify content. And inside we have a text area. Let's give size. It's gonna be bigger than this button. So let's say 3, flags 1. It's gonna be 3 times bigger. And I will say height 100%. We need a semicolon here. And I'm gonna delete the border and give some padding. Just like that. And for this button, again, our yellow color, and its height will be again 100%. Background color. I'm gonna delete the border and cursor pointer. Okay, so we can add a new message. What about here? Firstly, we can scroll these messages, and size of each message is half of the container. Our messages will be on the right, these users' messages will be on the left side. Let's do that. Firstly, I'll say overflow scroll, but in this case, remember, we need a height. We can actually give here flags 1, 5, 1, or you can directly give here any height, doesn't matter. Let's give 4 now. I will give padding, and it's gonna be vertical. And for each chat message, I'll say 50%. And if we are the owner of this message, align self will be flags and. Just like that. And I can move this to the right side also. To do that, I can use text align, and it's gonna be right. Okay, let's make them smaller and give this background color. I will say span. It's gonna be small. Background color. Padding will be 2. Border radius will be 5 pixels. Just like that. Let's check. This is the biggest screen. For the large screen, we don't have any problem, but if it's medium, as you can see, it doesn't look great. So what I'm gonna do is make this component vertical. So I'm gonna move my messages under these details. Let's do that. Let's close them and open up profile. I'm gonna import here responsive file. And here I will say include. For MD screen, flags direction will be column. And if it overflows, we are gonna scroll. It's not what we want because we are using flag size for details and chat container. I'm gonna copy this and I will say if it's MD, flex will be none, and the height will be maximum content. And I will do the same thing for this chat container. And perfect. Our messages and our lists. For the small screens, by the way, we can remove this image. We can see only our texts here. Let's find out our cart. Import this. And if it's small, display will be none. Okay, it's much better right now. Okay, perfect. So we finished our profile page, list page, single page, and the home page. Right now we are ready to create our backend server. I haven't decided yet, so let me know in the comments which technologies you want to see in the next tutorial, which backend technology, which database, which functionality we should use to upload images. So let me know in the comments and I'll start as soon as possible. Okay, that's all. I hope you liked it. If you learned something new today, please like the video. Don't forget to follow Lama Dev social media accounts, and you can support me using the link in the description below or by joining the channel. I hope I'll see you in the next tutorial. Goodbye.